Listen, I'm just gonna say it. Real estate sucks. But hear me out. I'm gonna give you all the reasons why I actually can say that. Because somebody like myself who's made millions of dollars in real estate, like, why would I say real estate sucks? Let's dive in. This whole video today is gonna be about why I left real estate. People ask me all the time, Chris, are you still flipping houses? You still doing real estate? I'm like, not really, because I gotta say not really, because I still have a little bit. So let me lay out the 4 main headaches that I found in real estate. Number 1, tenants. I had major issues with tenants, and I'm sure many of you have. Contractors. Number 2, contractors created massive headaches for me. And with contractors comes along building inspectors. We'll talk about them more in a bit. And the last thing, well, banks. Yeah, banks. Let me start with tenants. So I owned up to 91 doors at one point, and I had gone literally full multifamily back in 2009 to 14, and then a bank forced me to sell all those, but we're gonna talk about the tenants during that period of time. But then I got back into flips, and then flips landed me back in rentals, because some of the flips you just couldn't sell at a profit, so you'd do the BRRRR method. And then the BRRRR method led to additional rentals. Got up to 91 doors, that second part. I had 36 doors the first part. So here's some of the issues I dealt with. I would rent a unit. We did lots of background, and I learned a lot, made mistakes, and then kind of got better at it. But with tenants, it doesn't matter how much due diligence you do, when the tenant is done, they're done. And I had many tenants. I live in New York, for the record, and in New York it's very difficult and time consuming and costly to get rid of a tenant. They have all the rights. The landlord, me, had no rights. So getting rid of a tenant really would cost you 3 months of rent. Sometimes more, because if you didn't act quick, if they were late on payment and they were making excuses, oh, I'm gonna catch you up next month and then next month, usually we would let them go 2 months. And then most of the time they wouldn't even catch up, and then you're another 3 months. So you are talking 5 months from start to finish of if a tenant decides they don't wanna pay you rent. And never fails, they always damage the unit. Then they get mad when they get booted or evicted out, or a marshal has to drag them out. So we've had tenants dump cat litter down our toilets. We've had all sorts of things, cut the pipes, destroy the place. They don't care. So that's tenants. But then comes along contractors, because the damage the tenant creates, you need contractors. And we used to flip a lot of houses, 270 plus flips. There were times when we had the HGTV show where we'd have 25 flips going at the same time. We had project manager and we had hundreds of contractors. Now here's the thing with contractors. I don't care how organized you are, contractors, well, they're gonna be contractors. They're gonna show up when they want, they're gonna leave when they want, they're gonna do the work that they want, and a lot of times it's not gonna be up to your standards. So you're always in this constant push and pull with the contractors. Contractors lead to building inspectors and home inspectors. So the contractor finishes the job, to which you hope, or you better have made sure, they pulled permits. Now comes the most important part. They gotta close out the permits. Once the contractor is paid, do you think they're very motivated to close out the permits? Nope. So we'd always have to chase them. And then the inspector comes in and they flag all sorts of things the contractor did wrong. Contractor's been paid, getting them back in? No. Now I know a lot of you are gonna make comments saying you should be doing holdbacks. Well, we learned and we started doing that, but it didn't matter. They had the bulk of their money, so the 10 or 20, we actually got the 20% holdback. A lot of times they would just leave that because they didn't want to come back and fix something that the inspector flagged or the inspector didn't approve. So now you got to bring in another contractor. It's just a whole show. That's exactly what it is with contractors. But the building inspectors are a whole nother fun experience. Building inspectors interpret the code differently than contractors. And they come in, and most times in your project, they're gonna tell you to do it their way. The contractor says they did it right, they're gonna say, no, they didn't. And then it's just this battle. You're this mediator in between. I could go on and on and on. Because once you pee in the building inspector's sandbox, I know, hey, listen, sometimes you just gotta go. Kidding. But then they got you flagged. And then every other project you do, they're there before you even pull the permits. The second you put a dumpster in the driveway, building inspector shows up. Now let's move on to the last thing. Banks. You would think banks are your friend, right? They want to make loans to you. They want to help you out. I know, I was kidding. They don't want to help you out. The bank's in it for themselves. You know, and a very wise mentor of mine once told me, the ultimate in real estate is being the bank. I'm not going to get into all the problems I had with banks, but I will tell you that a bank was responsible for me having to sell 36 units. All those properties I bought from 2009, right after the Great Recession, to 2014. Yep, that sale of all of them, that was because of a bank. But that's not the only issue I've had with banks. You see, a lot of times I would get a BRRRR done and I would take it to the bank, and the bank appraisal would come in significantly lower than the appraisal I had done, because I got smart. I would get my own appraisal done, and then I would go to the bank and go for the refi. So I already knew what I was gonna get, or at least I thought I knew it, and the bank appraisal would come in less. Then it's just a tug of war. Here's our appraisal from a credible appraiser. Here's your appraisal. So we actually got smart there. We started using the exact same appraiser the bank used. Yeah, that's the only thing that fixed the problem. So little advice to you. But banks are not your friend. They don't want to help you. And usually you're going to get caught holding the bag when the bank decides they don't want to lend to you or lend you as much as you need. So those are the different things that happened. But it happened 270 plus times. Now, let me give you the final blow, right? This is like you're in a boxing match, you're doing good, but you're tired, and then there's just that final blow, that left hook to the face, as Mike Tyson was famous for. The final blow was COVID. When COVID hit in New York, essentially the state, and you can interpret this however you want, essentially the state said tenants cannot be evicted. So let me ask all of you, if you're a tenant, and you're living in a unit that you don't really love and you want to kind of move out eventually, but you're just there, and all of a sudden the state says, hey, you can't be evicted. What do you think's going to happen? Let me tell you what did happen. They stopped paying rent. And then you send nice letters. Those nice letters turn into legal letters from your attorney. The legal letters turn into foreclosure notices, all of which cost you money. All the while, you're not receiving any rent. So let's say rent's $1,000 a month. So let's go 5 months, right? That was the typical time. It's $5,000. Oh, during COVID, it was a lot longer because you couldn't evict them. So even if you got approvals, which you still did, you'd go through the court system, which was so slow. You'd get the approval, you couldn't do anything until the state lifted whatever they called that thing, where you couldn't evict them, you couldn't evict them. Final straw, we'd bought a property right before COVID hit. Nothing special, but we bought it in an auction. We were gonna renovate it and sell it. Well, no big deal. We got it, we learned that there was a squatter, a drug addict was living there, squatting. Okay, you've probably heard of that. That means they're not welcome, they're not paying rent, there is no lease. They just decided, hey, this is a nice roof. It's kind of like the raccoon that makes its way into your garage, right? It's just squatting. You know, no big deal, just tell them to move on and they will. But the tenant, the squatter, will not. Then the state put that mandate in, and Buffalo, the same thing, where you couldn't evict a tenant. Well, under the definitions, and I don't still to this day understand this one, my squatter that I acquired in the acquisition of this property had legal rights. Yeah. So I now had a tenant that never paid rent, that ran drugs out of my house, that literally was destroying the house. That's my new tenant, and I can't get rid of them. It took me over a year to get this tenant out. And do you think the courts got this person out? Oh no. Do you know how many times we called the police and the police wouldn't even get out of their car? They'd meet our property manager over there and they would just say, hey, we can't do anything. This is not our jurisdiction. You're gonna have to take this up in the courts. I said, we already did. Here's the eviction notice. Sorry, we can't do anything about it. So what would you do, folks? You would take matters into your own hands. I don't care what you say, that's what you do. Because at this point, you are literally at the end. So here's what we did. We made friends with the neighbor, who was really nice. And we said, hey, every time our little drug friend leaves, can you call me? So one night they called me, said, hey, your little drug friend is out getting drugs. Okay, great. I sent a crew over there to board up every window. Oh, you can't just board the doors up. Are you kidding me? They'll climb through the window. They'll break the window to get in. They're just squatting. all the windows. The only window that I didn't board up was the attic window, 2 stories up. So our little friend comes back, and this is funny. My neighbor was giving me the play-by-play, comes back and can't get in. You could see her frantic, starts scaling the back of the house, trying to get to the attic window, the only one that wasn't boarded up, because I didn't just nail the boards in, I basically lag bolted them in, which did damage to the house, but hey, had to do it. So that's it. Now I'm gonna move to the pivot. I don't know how all of you feel after everything I just said, but I'm kind of hyperventilating. I'm starting to like relive those awful times. But there is a sweet spot to this. After that, I just said I'm done with real estate. But I now had the ability to become the bank because I sold a lot of that real estate. Now I had money. So now I was going to be the bank, but I didn't know how to be the bank. But I did after I met this guy, Mike. I met him out in Salt Lake City at a cheesecake factory, very wealthy, multi-generational real estate family who lent me a lot of the money on the flips we did. And I had just asked him, I said, hey, Mike, how do you lend all this money? And he said, well, I lend from my own private bank. He explained all the things like the guaranteed interest, the dividends, the uninterrupted compounding interest. And he explained everything about it. And I said, oh my gosh. I have been staring at this. I have been seeing this. I've been around this, and I didn't know how to use this. I didn't know how to make money twice on the same dollar. And Mike opened the door for me. You all know this to be the infinite banking concepts. Privatized banking, if you will. That's what the kind of formal name for it is. So I started. I had a little bit of debt to climb out of, but I started lending, and then more, and then a little bit more than that. And then, well, I got the idea. The idea that something that needed to exist did not exist. A problem that I found that I knew I could solve. And that was the problem of one place. That's right, one place where people with money can meet people that need money. Kind of like a dating site for money. And this is how I created Private Money Club. And Private Money Club has become the largest true private lending community. What do I mean by that? Well, private lending is kind of now, everybody's calling their lending private lending, including institutions and Wall Street and hedge funds. So I say the true private lending. What do I mean? You and me, lending to other folks that need money. That's what I started doing, and that's when I fully understood what Greg had told me so many years before. The ultimate in real estate is being the bank. You don't have to deal with tenants. You don't have to deal with contractors. You don't have to deal at all with building inspectors. And you certainly don't have to deal with the banks. You are the bank. And because you are the bank, no one but you makes the rules. So the hardest part about being the bank is the first beginning stages. You got to learn how to do the due diligence. So although we're not going to get into all the nitty-gritty of underwriting every single deal, and by the way, you can hire that, right? If you're not smart enough to do something, find somebody who is. Underwriters are all over the place. There are services out there that you can hire to underwrite a deal if you don't know how to do it. But if you do hire an underwriter, learn from them. Watch what they do. You know, it's very simple, to be quite honest. It's just like a bank does. Let me repeat that. Just like a bank. If you want to get into being your own bank, you want to get into private lending, all you need to do is remember when you went to the traditional bank because you wanted a loan, what did they ask you? Well, lots. They asked about you. They asked about your income. They asked about your assets. They asked you for a personal financial statement. They reviewed your credit score. They went into all sorts of details about you. So if you're lending on a real estate deal, start with underwriting the borrower, because that's the person who's writing the check to you. That's the person who's going to finish the deal. That's the person who you need to know the most about. Secondarily, then you underwrite the deal. Make sure the deal's got adequate equity. Get photos of the deal. Make sure that their scope of work is in line with what they're doing. Now, some of you might be like, I wouldn't know how to do that. Again, hire somebody to do it. It will save you a lot of money. And listen, if you're going to lend money, you're going to do really well. Now, I, right now, am lending between 12 and 18%. I'm not saying that's what you're gonna get, but on Private Money Club, there's plenty of deals between 10 and 20%. Now, I'm not making a claim that that's what you're gonna receive, and you're gonna have to do your own due diligence, but I'm just giving you an idea. You get paid. You get paid to be the bank, and you get paid plenty, so take a little bit of that, hire a professional. Now here's another couple pieces of advice, and this is where I see a lot of people go off the rails. A lot of people get all hung up on the return. They're like, oh, that return's so big. Okay, ask yourself, why is the return big? Why are they paying that much in interest? Is it because there's something wrong with the deal? Are you not going to be in first position? Now, I'm not gonna say first is the only position you can be in. But if it's me, I remember Talladega Nights. And I remember Ricky Bobby's dad saying to him, son, if you're not first, you're last. And you know what? I've seen that happen a lot. I've seen a lot of people in second and third position in real estate deals be last and lose significantly. You want to be in first position, and that's my choice. Now, whatever you do, that's up to you. Second thing, I see a lot of people make mistakes because when they lend money to a borrower, the borrower convinces them somehow to send the money directly to them. Oh, it's okay, you're lending the money to the company, just send the money to the company. Don't do that. Get a third-party escrow company, a title company, or a real estate attorney that you hired to represent your needs and goals. I mean, isn't this just logical? It sort of just makes sense. I'm not trying to sit there and say, that you need to understand all this. I'm just saying it's logical. Hey, if you're gonna lend money on a real estate deal, it might make sense to have an attorney reviewing all the documents, to actually drafting the documents. I mean, it might also make some sense to do some homework. So we have the accelerator coaching. A lot of people go through the PMC accelerator coaching to learn from Noah Harris, who's an unbelievable real estate investor. He's been on both sides, lending and borrowing. He knows the things to do, and you can learn too. Or go on and watch my YouTube videos. I got lots of YouTube videos talking about this. And if you don't like me, watch somebody else's YouTube video. Actually, if you don't like me, why are you here? But actually, let's fix that right now. Right now, what I'd like you to do is click that little subscribe button, and right above the subscribe button, there's this little bell, and it doesn't look like this, it just looks like a bell. Yeah, but smash that bell. Got a hold of that one. Smash the bell to be notified every time I go live, every time I put out a new video. But let's get back into it. Just use common sense. And if you do, you're gonna cut out a lot of the issues. Never send your money directly to them. I prefer first position because I don't want to be last position. That's all I like. And you know what? The last thing I would say to you, hire professionals and learn the rules of engagement. But all of those rules are right in privatemoneyclub.com. There's plenty of free trainings in there. There's the accelerator coaching course, like I mentioned. There's all sorts of other people doing this. So, hey, listen, if you're in real estate and you're sick of tenants, you're sick of leaky toilets, you're sick of dealing with contractors, the nonsense, and the building inspectors, like I mentioned, and you're really sick of the banks, well, I'm gonna say the same thing to you that was said to me. Sir or ma'am, the ultimate in real estate is being the bank. And if you wanna learn how to do that, go to privatemoneyclub.com and get started. It is the dating site for money. People with money meet people that need money for real estate, and they can come together in the community. It's totally free. Create a profile. There are paid options, but let's just get started. Start communicating. Start talking to people. Start building a relationship at www.privatemoneyclub.com. My wife would say, you don't need that www in the beginning. I'm showing my age. Today's my birthday. I'm 48 years old, so damn it, I own the right to say www. So there you have it. Get out there, become your own bank, learn the rules, and well, you probably should learn how to be your own bank too. So check this video out, The Secrets of the Wealthy. We'll see you on the next one.